BBC Radio 1 Stories. Discover more.
Singer, producer, dancer, visionary. There's no doubt FKA Twigs is one of the most exciting artists in music today. By combining ethereal sounds with sometimes intense visuals and amazing performance, she is a woman who's brought a singular vision to the music world and is rightly getting the attention she deserves. I've interviewed Twigs before, but for this program, I got the chance to sit with her properly, face to face. The idea was to draw back the curtain on her world just that little bit more. In the next hour, you'll hear some of that interview, but you'll also hear from others, the people around her, her collaborators, and her fans. So my advice is, sit back and immerse yourself in the creative world of FKA Twigs.
Music has kind of like an aura about it, really ethereal.
Just completely different to what anything else is out there.
The production she uses and the visuals with her vocals, I think all together makes something special.
I mean, it's very sexy.
Darkly erotic.
I think it's quite spellbinding. Like it makes you feel a bit nervous, but in a good way.
People just have it. She has it.
When I first heard her music, I was like, what the f is this? What the f is this? What the f
Hello. I fell in love with music when I discovered that I didn't love dancing, I loved dancing to music. When I was young, I did ballet and I danced to a lot of classical music. And then as I became a little bit older, like maybe 11 or 12, and I had a bit more say in what I wanted to dance to, I would love dancing to like Marvin Gaye or Nina Simone. I guess I was like an old soul in many ways when I was young.
Falling in love again. I never wanted to.
My parents brought me up on, I don't know, lots of different things, but when I was young, I was singing along to Tanya Maria like it was normal. I would like learn her scats and sing them like it was Take That or Spice Girls or whatever, and I to me that was normal.
So we need to go back to the start to a certain extent, and I'm sure it's a story that you must be tiring of talking about, so we'll try and make it as interesting as possible. But I think it's important for the nature of this documentary that people understand where you began, and for someone like yourself, growing up in Gloucestershire, and you've described that very early on. I've heard it many times, the middle of nowhere. I think that isolation can really breed imagination, a form of escape, a healthy creativity. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I think so, but I was also very inspired by big cities when I was young. Like my mum and my dad and my stepdad and all of my family are actually from Birmingham. So I kind of had this contrast between growing up in Gloucestershire and going to a small school and going down country lanes and looking out my bedroom window and seeing fields for miles, and I grew up in a valley. So it's very beautiful and very calm, and it's just like a bubble in itself. To then every summer holiday going to Birmingham and being at like the custard factory and like the bull ring and the rag market and all these things. And
did you embrace that schizophrenia, that domestic schizophrenia?
Yeah, I really did. And especially with my mum as well. Like my mum, before she had me, she had a shop, so she'd always tell me stories of like going fabric shopping in like Milan, or like going up to London to look at collections to source for her shop that was back in the country. So my mum was quite adventurous, and so I think when I was a kid I sort of lived through her adventures in many ways. And she always had like amazing magazines and books, and so although I was in the country, I felt like maybe quite worldly from when I was young. My mum would like have stacks and stacks and stacks of Vogue magazines under her bed, like stacks and stacks and stacks. And sometimes she'd go out to like a salsa nightclub, and I'd be at home, and it would be maybe like 2 a.m, and I'd wake up and I'd sneak into her room and go under her bed and like get out all the magazines that she'd been like hiding and look through all the pictures. So although I was brought up in a very quiet place, I think that I had a sort of knowledge of what the world is.
You've talked openly about being one of, if not the only, mixed-race individual in your school. How was it for you at school? What kind of things inspired you? What kind of things moved you and got you through that time?
I went to St Edward's, which is a Catholic school in the country, and it's a private school, but I got a performing arts scholarship to go. And it meant that like I was always then like really thrown into the plays and the fashion shows and stuff like that. And I had an incredible drama teacher, or 2 drama teachers, Mr. Algood and Miss Tucker, and they were incredible, and they would let me use a drama studio every single lunchtime. So me and my friends, we were kind of like cool in our own way, but like really like geeky. You know, one of us was really good at sport, one of us was like amazing at playing violin, like another guy was like amazingly like academic, and we'd all just go in the drama studio every single lunchtime and make things, whether it was a dance or like a scene from a play, or we were really obsessed.
And out of interest, what's happened to your friends in that environment? Have they gone on to pursue those interests, those passions that they had?
Do you know, I left Gloucestershire and I never looked back.
Has it been like that for you your whole life, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm really like that.
Gone.
Yeah,
Set fire to it.
Yeah, I'm really like that. You know, to be able just to completely like let go of something and be, okay, I'm going to do this now. I was a dancer and I just completely dropped out of the dance scene, and just to wake up one day and call your agent and be like, hi, I just wanted to let you know, don't book me any jobs anymore. Like, stop contacting me because I don't want to do it. And people were like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, I need some time for myself. And I knew it was because I wanted to do music, but I didn't want to tell anybody that. So, I don't know, to have that ability to be able to be like, I think that's a strength, but obviously, you know...
It comes at a price. Because you leave, you know, relationships, they do suffer sometimes when that happens, and it's,
yeah,
hey, it's
but
hard.
when you're young, I don't think it matters that much. I mean, now it does, because I'm 27, and obviously you want to build those relationships, and that's important. Sometimes when I talk about my life, like, it seems like it happened recently, but I just did, like, a lot when I was young. Like, I travelled a lot, and sort of, I left Gloucestershire when I was 16. 19, I left London and I moved to LA. And then when I was 20, I moved back to England. I moved from South London to East London. And I'm always like that. I kind of just move on and 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 on. I'm a bit of a free spirit like that.
He won't make love to me now. Not now, I set the feet. He said it's too much in pound. I guess I'm stuck with me.
You're listening to a program about FKA Twix. FKA Twix. FKA Twix. On BBC Radio 1.
She the girl that's from the video. Was she the girl that's from the video? Was she the girl that's from the video? You lying, you lying, you lying.
Can't wait to see her dance. Yeah, me too. Mainly, oh my gosh. My friend said if Twigs vogues, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, she will, she will.
Her voguing, she dances often, and I've seen it on YouTube, and she's such an amazing dancer, and I really want to see it live.
That's a really interesting part. I mean, the fact that she's just like a dancer, and that's all part of her kind of mystique in a way. She's kind of got like this physicality to a lot of her music.
She the girl that's from the video. She the girl that's from the video. You lying, you lying, you lying.
Let's talk about dance, Twigs, and because it's something that you have not only maintained such a love for, it's a huge part of the visual aesthetic of what you do. It's been a huge part of what has drawn people towards you, is that expressive side of your nature and of your personality. How was it for you in those years when you were treading the boards, when you were working the circuit and doing the videos and all that kind of stuff, and the highs and the lows, the successes and challenges at that time?
It's just really humbling because you know what it's like to work your ass off for something that you love and be at the bottom of the pile.
Get like 2 frames in a 3-minute video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was difficult, and I do things that I absolutely hated. Yeah, sometimes, but it's like anything, you have to pay your rent.
Of course.
And maybe that was better for me than folding t-shirts. At least it was like some sort of expression that I could do, even though it actually was quite painful sometimes.
Just reading about your path so far, it feels like it was an important stepping stone, that you wouldn't be where you are today if you hadn't had that experience.
Yeah, it was incredibly important, even in just learning how to direct or learning. I really watch people. It's sort of a cheesy expression, but I say, we have 2 eyes, 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I really believe that it should kind of be you. So if you're watching and you're listening when you're on jobs, you can actually learn so much without even doing it. I wouldn't be able to direct my videos now if I hadn't have, when the other dancers were maybe
checking their Twitter.
Or checking their Twitter, I would just really quietly go and sit behind the director and just watch exactly everything, learn about the lenses, learn about what the different roles are, who does what for you, whether it's the AD or the DOP or all these different people, what do all these little abbreviations mean, and so that I was able to learn and create those things for myself.
In August last year, I interviewed Twigs, and she started talking about London's underground krump and voguing scenes. To me, it was fascinating.
Do you know much about the krump scene that's going on in London at the moment?
Not at the moment. I mean, I know about krumping.
The fact that in Vogue and in Krump, these families are being born where you have to be able to produce their own music. You have to be able to do dance. You have to know the roots. Where does that move come from? What does it mean? What does it saying? Essentially, that's how hip-hop started. So to have young people and then older people in these dance families informing us all in Vogue and Krump, I think it's making something amazing. And in terms of even music, you should check it out.
My name is Bill, aka Big Soul, aka Young Complicated.
My name is Mason, aka Big Seizure.
My name is Jonathan, aka Lil Reels, aka Chino.
We're all part of Wet Wipes. We're a big family, UK Krump family. One of the first, to be honest. Actually, we are the first. It's just amazing how we all got together, I think. Krump was a getaway for me, a bit of fresh air, I think, because I was a body popper. I was a popper beforehand, and I had a significant kind of loss in my life. My brother was taken from me a couple of years back, and when I met Wet Wipes, I don't even know. I think it was just a sign to say that I'm going to be okay, regardless of what happened to me. And to be honest, they changed my life. I don't know what I'd be doing otherwise.
Well, if you're drowning and there's nothing around for help but a board floating, you're going to reach out for that board, and this was our board.
Krump, when it started off, it was actually a way for young individuals in Los Angeles to resolve their conflict without having to be violent about it. So in the beginning, it was really battle orientated. Everything was always in the street, off a car, which is why I told you earlier on that when we session out of a car, it feels more like home as opposed to being in the studio. But the battle aspect is the main thing that keeps Krump alive and it keeps it going.
Just plug a car, speaker, portable speaker or something, and just blur out the music and just dance your hearts out.
Basically, we're from the inner city, or what you would call the ghetto. The lower parts of Los Angeles, Watts, east side of LA, Compton, Long Beach. We don't get the best of everything, so what we do, we come together and we dance.
Krump is a formation of stumps, arm swings, jabs, chest pops, and head snaps. Those are the original basics. And a lot of people misperceive Krump for it to be an aggressive art form or something that makes it look violent. Krump is not violent. I'd say Krump for me is an outlet. It's just something that it's a breath of fresh air, like I said.
Ricardo, my artist name, Dominant. Me and Twigs, we kind of start working from early, before she really got into the music. So when we met, we kind of did a music video together. She likes Krump and she likes the energy of it, and it would push her also in her music in terms of confidence and things like that. So like, as you can see, like Krump has that energy.
My name is Big Seizure and I worked with Twigs on her video called Wet Wipes. When speaking to Twigs, the first thing that comes to mind is an independence, an individual mindset that she's built herself, and she's very thorough on what she wants and what she talks about. You could talk to her about anything really, and she'll give her honest opinion. And she just really knows what she's doing and what she wants. And she's just a normal person really. I mean, a lot of people look to her as someone who might be too cocky because she's talking that way, but she's actually really cool and she really wants to learn more about anything that anyone has to offer, which is cool.
It's nice to see an artist like that that's just taking full control of their art, dancing, singing, directing videos, composing music. She knows what she wants.
FKA Twix.
I'm Benjamin. I'm a Voguer. It originates from New York City. The black, gay, Latino, queer culture back in the 70s, 80s. And then the dance originated from something called ballroom scene. So if you see a documentary called Paris is Burning, it kind of explains where voguing comes from.
How long did it take you to do the 10 top? An hour. An hour?
It has inspiration from fashion, hieroglyphs, and kind of martial arts. Just expressing who you are. We actually met at Madame Jojo's. It was really nice. It was just very organic. I was just dancing and she was around and we just kind of linked, and she invited me to come and see her show. Then we were talking and she was telling me she was going to New York. So I was like, if you go, you should definitely go to one of the Vogue clubs over there just to really see the legends and see the culture, see the scene. And she did, and she loved it. And then we started training back here in London, and I helped her with a section for her tour. And then I did her Google Glass video in LA. Yeah, and I feel like she's been really respectful and kind of taking in the culture to also bring it into 2015. I think most dancers who listen to her music wants to dance to it because there's so many interesting beats and different rhythms to work with.
Was I just a number to you? Was I just a lonely girl to fly? Tonight, I've got a question for you. Tonight, you want to live or die?
You're listening to a program about FKA Twigs on BBC Radio 1 with Zane Lowe.
It's great to be here at the Roundhouse for tonight's show. A new show, and an evolved show from what you started with after you released, LP1. And just walking through the Roundhouse, I was saying before we started rolling, the sense of anticipation and production and event and occasion already the day before the show is totally palpable. How do you feel when you walk through this room on the way into here and you see all these people working head down focused on this show?
Well, I guess because I used to be a backing dancer, it's something that I'm used to, but it's different this time because it's for me.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's weird because all the dancers in the show and the musicians, my band, they're all people that I've worked on projects with before, so it's kind of like a group of friends coming together, but this time it's my vision and it's how I wanted it to be, so that's really exciting.
I mean, only really 6 months since the release of your album, which isn't to negate any of the work you put in prior to that, but still, as far as, you know, a lot of audience are concerned, that's a watershed moment. That's when they get a body of music, they get to invest in you as an artist. And to go from there and to see your ambitions being realized here in the Roundhouse 6 months on, it just must feel like a dream.
It is. I'm quite weird. I find it difficult to realise things at the time. I find it difficult to sometimes realise like what I'm doing until a long time afterwards.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it will hit me what's happened at some point.
So what's the name and the concept and the feel of the show?
It's called Congregata, and that's basically Latin for a congregation, a coming together of people, and I wanted to call it that because, like I said before, all of the people in the show are my friends. They're all people that I've worked with, that I've met in really bizarre ways, and they've just sort of come along with me on, I hate the word journey, but on this sort of thing that I'm doing. And for example, Kana and Malik, they're two bone breakers in the show, and I met them busking.
My name's Kana Scott. The type of dancing I do is called flexing, which includes bone breaking, tutting, gliding, amination, and leg breaking as well. For like people who don't know what the style is, it's like contortion, but dancing with it kind of thing. I was dancing on the street, and she saw us dancing on the street, and she felt what we was doing, and she just took our number, and then yeah, the rest is history. Twigs is the most driven musician I've ever worked with. The love that she has for music and the art and the dancing is just, it's incredible. Like, she really cares about it, and she really cares about us, and she treats us as artists, not dancers. Even when I perform with her and she looks at me and stuff, like, I feel like it's all for me, and I know the other dancers feel that as well.
Then I've got other people like Aaron, who's been choreographing, who's one of my best friends, and he's in videos of mine, such as Twix, and he's done a lot of movement direction for me over the years, and he's in the show and he's choreographed the shows. I met him in an art gallery, and he said to me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "I'm a dancer." And he was like, "What sort of dancing?" And I was like, "Podium." And he was like, "Oh, I'm a dancer too." And I was like, "What do you do?" And he was like, "Oh, I just did a show at Sad as well." So I was like, "Oh."
I'm Aaron Sliss, and I'm a choreographer for FKA Twigs. I remember that she was a singer, like a jazz singer, starting out. And she remembers telling me that she was a dancer at the time. And I was obviously a dancer still, and was moving into choreography. So our story slightly differs. But yeah, I remember meeting her on the stairwell, and we just clicked straight away, and we've been friends ever since. I used to go see her doing, you know, her cabaret stuff and her jazz gigs, and just her in the corner with like a keyboard player or, you know, a trombone or something, and would watch her do her gigs. She did quite a few different things, like she did some different cabaret shows, but she always would choreograph her own stuff and make up her performances, and it was slightly, had a hint of burlesque in there, and she was like just leading stuff. To just be here now at the Roundhouse and seeing her with a fully formed show is really amazing. It's an amazing moment for me. Even watching the rehearsals the other day, I just said to her, this show is like tailor-made for all her talents and skills, of course. And you can just see all her influences and all the stuff she's done before, how it's all filtered into this. And she's just growing and growing, and working with all the choreographers she's working with, you know, and the dancers like the Krumpers, the Vogers, the contemporary, the bone breaking, like, she's kind of learnt all of these things and worked alongside all of us and been friends with us for like 4 or 5 years. And it's great that we are now here as her kind of like family. Seeing it, it does just make sense. And I'm like, this is just your thing. This is what you should have been doing, and this is what you are doing. And it's working, and people respond to it.
I think it's more just about my friends and me being able to give them their time to shine, and also allow me to dance and perform in a way that I can't when I'm on tour and I've never seen the venue before and I turn up at 5 o'clock in Paris, for example, and my show's at 9. You can't do that much with the stage or with your imagination, but this has really been thought out so that I can make something special.
My name's Tick and I work for Twigs' label, and I play in her band as well. I met her at a party I was hosting in East London, and I knew her manager Mikey already, and I knew of her, but he'd kind of kept me hidden from her, and I immediately knew that she had a different perspective, and we started making music a few months later. She's not a muso. There was a lot of adventure. There is still a lot of adventure and experimentation in the music that she makes. And I'd like to see her carry on with that and not be too distracted by being able to fit herself into any category or just paying too much mind to that way of working.
I'm Cyan. I play live with Twigs and work in the studio with her too. Twigs is always asking me to tell this story of how we met. Her mum approached me in a coffee shop. I was sitting there wearing full leathers and biker boots and a blue quiff, and she came up to me and said, "Are you a musician?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You've got to meet my daughter. You're exactly the same. You're both clean punks." I was kind of thrown a bit by that, and it was the period of time where you would ask someone for their MySpace address to contact them. So I gave her that, and I got a message a few days later on MySpace from Twigs and saying, "Oh, sorry if that was awkward." I was like, "Not at all." But she asked if we could meet up and make some music, and we started doing that from there. Everything seems to just be by everybody being in the right place at the right time, and her spotting the people that she knows are right for the project and that are right for her to be around her. It all seems to be just, do those people share her vision? And if they do, and if they've got the right attitude, then they stay around.
I feel like that as well, even when I work with people on visuals or like a poster or album artwork, or no matter what it is, like I really want to give people just their time to shine, just how in a way then they're giving me my time to shine as well. If someone is a bad egg, it's like they are out. I don't care, they're out. Like I don't care how talented, I don't care if they can change my career, I don't care if they're the next big thing and we're like a power team together. If someone shows me that they're a bad egg and if they're a hurtful person, like that's it.
I've got time, but you're tired of waiting. You only want me in open spaces. I'll fill your gaps with people. I don't know one so lonely.
You're listening to
FKA Twix
on BBC Radio 1 with Zane Lowe.
I think it's the combination. That's why she's so amazing. She hasn't just got one aspect, she's got all of it.
Just do one, but she has the whole package, and it's quite rare to get that.
It just doesn't sound like she got told what to do by someone who knows what sells.
And how she's so self-directed, like all her videos are amazing and she does all that herself. Just the way she presents herself, I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, I think she's good, like she got different sound, different style. The artists she uses, like the production she's on, yeah, I listen to them as well, like their own solo music. So Young Turks, the label she's on, yeah, I listen to them.
Working with Arca as well, it's like a good kind of midpoint. It sits in a really interesting place between like experimental beat kind of music, like hip hop kind of stuff, and traditional kind of R&B melodic kind of music as well.
Yeah, I'm Julian, I live in London, I'm a creative. I'm Alejandro's flatmate. He's Aka and he produced one of the EPs for Twix and defined her sound to a certain extent. And I got introduced by him to it, and I really like the style because it's abstract and quite postmodern, mixing all the other genres together. It's pretty now, it's pretty modern. He told me like he actually wrote some of the lyrics as well, which I didn't know. Yeah, I'm happy going in here, and she's been appearing in our flat once, and I was like a bit surprised. I just asked her if she wanted some water, but she didn't want some. That's it.
You are someone who's fascinating, I think, to people who produce records and stay up in their bedrooms till 3 a.m. making beats and troubleshooting music programs, because your first EPs, you did some collaborations with some very, very talented, creative people. I mean, working with Aka early on is like, people don't just do that, he's incredible. But then you decide to take that inspiration and forge your own sound, doing it yourself, learning how to work those programs, learning how to use Ableton and stuff. Was that something you always wanted to do, and how was it learning that and making your own album? And yes, you worked with people, but I know you did a majority of that album yourself.
Yeah, it was really difficult, but it was really difficult because I realised that I had to do it myself because, like you said, I wanted to make my own sound, and people like Arca and Tick, they'd inspired me and informed me in a certain way, but ultimately, for the record, I just knew that it was a challenge and that I had to do a lot of it by myself. And it's really difficult for me to kind of put myself back in that headspace.
Well, let me do it, because I listened to the album this morning. Here we go. Wow, you ready? Let's go. Therapy time, all right?
Oh, gosh.
I listened to the album again this morning, and it had been a couple of months since I'd listened to it, and I went back in, and it had changed shape for me, like all great albums do, because the day's different. The mood is different, the feel is different, so it means something different to me. But some things really rang true still, and that is the combination of this purity, this choral nature, because of the background you had, learning opera, mixed with this kind of spontaneous, industrial, at times quite violent sounding instrumentation. The feeling that the music is falling over itself, and yet somewhere along the line there's this common thread which keeps it together. It's a very, very fascinating listen in that sense. I don't get any impression from listening to it that you really thought about it as consciously as perhaps some people think you did, that you followed it and felt it more than anything.
Yeah, of course, it was a massive journey. Like, when I recorded my record, I was in I'd say quite like a bad place for me. I just felt really lonely, and I felt very intimidated, and I felt just really alone. It was a strange thing, and I didn't, just from so many things. It's like, sometimes in life everything's so good, whether it's with your family or your relationships with your friends, and then often like one thing falls off a little bit and you've got the other sort of columns there to help you build it up. But at that time, everything just completely fell apart, and it just made me actually feel really strong, but in a really erratic way. Even when I was mixing the record with David Wrench, my ears just needed everything to be so harsh, because they were completely shot, because I just hadn't stopped listening to music and working on music, and headphones on planes in my room, in terrible studios, in beautiful £1 million studios. The journey across the whole record was quite incredible. But by the time it came to mix, I just felt so aggressive, and it was like I was hyperventilating towards the end. And I think that's why it came out the way it did. That's why there's so much anxiety. But ultimately, it was like when I used to be in punk bands. My voice is my voice, and I can't change it. And so it's just weird, because then my voice sounds quite calm, but then everything else is so harsh and angry.
Visceral and full of friction.
but I just became really obsessed with sound as well. Like, not even music. Like, during my record, it was beyond music. It was like sounds. So I'd just sit and like solo like a buzzing thing for ages and like filter it and manipulate it. And in the mix, like, really, you can barely even hear it. My first boyfriend that I had that was also from the country was a massive hip-hop head. He was a hip-hop DJ. You couldn't walk in his room because there were records absolutely everywhere. So I was sort of 16 when we started dating, and he just had all this music everywhere and all of these like magazines like Big Daddy Kane and stuff like that. And I kind of really learned a lot through him in hindsight. I hadn't really realised maybe until recently just about music and about beats and about hip-hop and like different producers and things that were from much earlier than my time. And that's the interesting thing about hip-hop, I guess, is that there's such like a culture with it that you really have to go back to the beginning to understand it. And it doesn't really matter what age you are, you can still feel really connected to, say, Eazy-E, for example.
Easy is his name and the boys coming straight out of Compton.
You know, even though hip-hop was never my music of choice, just understanding. I think what it taught me is like that you have to go back to the beginning of things to truly understand it, and that linked in with also my classical dance training that I had. And also when I was young, I had opera lessons as well, so understanding that I had to sing an opera song in Latin. Why? Well, just because you have to. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because that's how you do it. If you want to learn to sing opera, then you have to sing it in Italian or you have to sing it in Latin. Music is split up into two things. There's a music industry and there's an entertainment industry. And they're actually really not to be confused. Like, the entertainment industry is maybe a cute girl who is talented and who has a good voice and can perform. And then somebody gives her a song, someone gives her a look, someone gives her a pop star name. And that's fine. That's actually perfectly fine. And that's kind of what Pop Idol and X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, that's what that is. But that's not at all to be confused with people who sit in their room at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to troubleshoot a music program, teach themselves how to play guitar or drums or whatever it is to make music, write their own music, write their own songs because, you know, their boyfriend broke up with them or their mum passed away, and then they have to put that down on paper. You have to have the guts to go up to someone after an open mic and be like, hey, like, my name's Talia and I really like the way you played guitar and I was wondering maybe next week do you want to come to my room and write a song? You know, and have that courage to be able to do that. And 10 years later, you're signed to an indie label with, you know, half the budget and almost like half the starting point as maybe perhaps a major label artist, but 100% of the creative control. And then to get like a track on a Radio 1 playlist is everything because you didn't know how you did it. It's not like you've got these people helping you. It's just a completely different game, and it's actually neither one is bigger or better or more important than the other because ultimately it's music and that's a bigger goal, but it's like it's coming from a completely different point of view, and that's why I guess I'm doing this at 27 and not 19, because honestly, like, I probably could have got snatched up by like Sony when I was like 18 years old and didn't have a clue, and I was a good dancer and an alright singer, and I'm sure something would have happened for a short while, or I would have been in some girl group somewhere. Within my friends at the moment, we've got like a kind of running joke about the word moonlighting. I was thinking today, like I was in the shower and I was like, I'm an underground artist moonlighting as a pop star. And I was just, it can just go on. Like, I was just like laughing in my head at all these things that you could be like moonlighting as. There's this thing, but I think on my record, like, I didn't want to be moonlighting as anything. Like,
fair enough. Save that for album number 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't call it moonlighting because it's a terrible name for an album.
I'm gonna call it moonlighting.
Don't. Oh my god.
I really like the sexual themes, the like energy, the sexual energy, and like female like taking the power of like the sexual energy, like as a woman.
A lot of people have said it's an album to have sex to, and I guess I would agree with that.
It's kind of a balance between like submission and control in a lot of her music, and I think that's something that comes forward in the kind of like the general kind of vibe, atmosphere of it. It's kind of halfway in between losing it and kind of keeping it under wraps.
She's very sexy. Yeah, I liked it. Very sexy. I want to be her, to be honest. I think I want to have sex with her more than to be her.
Baby, pacify. Won't you clarify?
And sexually as well. It's like that's a metaphor. I think a lot of people listen to the record, and I could be getting it wrong, and went, oh, it's a very sexually orientated album. But it feels to me like you're using that as a metaphor in many respects.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a young woman and growing up. Going from a young person or like lady to them being a woman, there's just so many lessons that you have to learn. And if you don't, you have to learn those lessons first time. And I was just taught all of those lessons within a year and a half. Like every single lesson I was just taught. Whether it's like dating the wrong people or making friends with the wrong people, or like family members being unwell and having to, you know, that role reversal where you have to really like be there for a family member that's usually there for you, or all these different things just completely came at the same time. It's like every single lesson you could be taught, but that's okay. Like I didn't want to fake anything. There was one song called Found, and you know, Radio 1 would have loved it. And I wrote the song before all of this stuff happened to me. And then when I was considering which things to put on the record, Found just didn't fit because it was far too happy. It was far too positive, far too happy. Like it's great, like major chords, and it, you know, Arca had worked on it, and like it was me, Dev Hines, Cam's Casino, and Arca and Emil Haney. Like what a dream team! I remember Emil messaging me afterwards, and he was like, "I feel upset that you didn't put Found on the record," and I was just like, "I don't care," because it just doesn't. You know, somebody said to me ages ago, imagine if you had to sing a song for the rest of your life and that was the only song that people knew you by, and that is the song. Like any song on my record, I would happily sing, but if Found would have been the one that took off, and then I had to sing that, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm singing about.
You would have been dreading the last 4 minutes of your live show every single night you're on stage.
Yeah, because the chords would come in of it and everyone would get out their iPhones. And I'd be like, it would just be like a false representation of what a hot mess I was.
That's the bio right there. That's the name of the book. Yeah. A false representation of what a hot mess I was. The story of FKA Twix.
FKA Twix.
BBC.
FKA Twigs says she is genuinely shocked and disgusted by the amount of racist tweets she's received in the past week.
And she's been spotted hanging out with her rumoured boyfriend, Robert Pattinson. Pattinson's new girlfriend is the victim.
You know, a boyfriend, Robert Pattinson,
abuse FKA Twigs is getting on her social networks.
Revealed plenty of side boob in her sexy velvet top.
It's fascinating for me seeing someone as artistically bloody-minded as yourself and as interesting and unique as yourself being this person who's in the Daily Mail. And I'm just like, it's crazy. I'm sure it's not something that you log on and look at, and yet how has it affected your way of thinking, if at all? And going forward, what are you learning from this experience?
It's a tough question. No, I mean, it doesn't affect me at all or what I create. You know, sometimes it's just frustrating because, you know, those sorts of tabloids, they're just looking for a headline. And that headline is often, like, so far from the truth of what it is. Does that make sense? So I'll do a show and, like, I'll start my show with, like, opera. And then in my head, I'm like, right, the beginning of the show, it's opera, but then I turn into a cat. And then by the time numbers come, I'm like an angry lover, and like maybe at that point I'll like grab someone's hair in the audience. Like sometimes I can just be quite like aggressive, like with my audience members, and I'll kind of plan this whole thing, and then I'll go to Kotweiler, who are amazing, like two guys, Matt and Ben, and they'll design me an outfit to wear. And I'll get ready and I'll feel great and I'll have the concept of the show, and like Science spent hours like on even like the gaps in between the songs. It's like everything is thought out to the maximum. And then I'll perform and everyone will love it, and I'll come off and people will be like, you were mesmerising, it was like wonderful, and I'll feel so great because the work that's gone into it. And then my leotard's gone up my bum a little bit, and the headline will be Twigs writhes around on stage in sex-craved outfit, grinding against fans. Like, I'm like, what? I'm a ballet dancer. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but do you know what? Like, whatever. It's amazing being an artist, but at the same time, it's quite tough sometimes as well. So why would you want to make it harder for yourself? And I remember like at the height when things were like really bad for me, like I remember like lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's embarrassing, but like just reading through everything, like every single comment. But it was more because I was like, I just couldn't believe the world was like that. Because I guess I'm quite naive. As for somebody who's really come through the internet, I actually don't engage with it that much. And I couldn't believe that people think like that or say things. It was complete, almost like morbidly fascinating.
Is that when you responded as such?
Yeah. But that wasn't even just for me. That was just like, even for people that listen to my music and feel how I was feeling at that time. I didn't want them to see me being like bullied in a way, because it is bullying. Like, I didn't want them to see me being bullied and not stand up for myself, because ultimately, like, I'm 10 times stronger than somebody hiding behind like a weird name on Twitter will ever be. So it's, I wanted to show that I can stand up for myself, so then hopefully like another person would see that and want to stand up for themselves.
She is incredible role model for women.
Definitely. Like, she's the kind of person that when I'm older and I have daughters, I will be like, you have to listen to FKA Twigs.
Her brand is quite different to all of the other artists like Beyonce and Rihanna, because her brand of sexuality is so kind of like, it's feminine, it's very feminist, it makes a woman feel proud of herself and sensuality.
It's not objectifying at all, it's just her being her.
It's her alone dancing and singing and kind of like protesting in a way about her sexuality in a way that I think is really good for the 21st century.
My main thing is, at the moment, I just love coming from the UK. For me, I feel really proud to come from here right now, and I hope that people from around the world can like look at this project and look at the people that have got involved, and then just realise like how amazing it is to be from here. Ryan Huffington, who's directing and choreographing a lot of the show, he told me about this playwright that he does these plays where a scene will be going on for like half an hour and somebody will be moving really slowly from one side of the stage to the other side. So you're watching a scene and you'll be like, okay, they're at like stage left, and then they'll move down. So you're like, how did they get to the front of the stage? And that's what I want to do, like just quietly do my thing and give people special parts of myself, and then maybe in 10 years it'll be, oh wow, like how did Twix get there?